Coming up, we honor Nikki Ducheneaux, the talented and accomplished lawyer whose recent passing shocked Indian country. Plus, the Mayo Clinic helps make organ transplants more accessible on the Navajo Nation. And IllumiNative celebrates its 5-year anniversary. I'm Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 Indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class Indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
Amarawa Hopa, thank you for joining us. We start today in Minnesota, where a tribal nation is set to soon become the first establishment in the state to sell recreational marijuana. Earlier this month, Red Lake Nation officials voted to legalize the use and selling of recreational cannabis. That's set to begin on August 1st at the tribe's medical marijuana dispensary, Native Care. Both tribal citizens and non-native local residents can shop there. Even though that's the case, the selling of recreational marijuana for the rest of Minnesota's cannabis retail locations isn't expected for another 12 to 18 months. State officials have yet to establish a licensing system required to allow businesses to possess recreational cannabis. With the Ojibwe Nation's tribally run cannabis dispensary up and running, the tribe has a head start in the projected $1.5 billion market. Above the medicine line, a predatory culture has been revealed within an Indigenous advocacy organization. In Canada, the Assembly of First Nations is a political organization representing around 900,000 First Nations people. At AFN's 2023 General Assembly, a new investigative account revealed allegations of ongoing harassment, assault, and abuse within the organization. Women allegedly reported to investigators instances of inappropriate touching, sexually explicit texts and emails, and concerns of losing their jobs if they complained. The report noted that the perpetrators were often those entrusted with the organization's mission, including chiefs, elders, and knowledge keepers. AFN National Chief Joanna Bernard released a statement calling for changes to internal policies, but did not address any action to be taken against the perpetrators. Now to Washington State, where a memorial service was held over the weekend for a well-respected tribal leader. In late June, the chairman of the Port Gamble Skolem, Jeremy Sullivan, died while being treated for an undisclosed illness. The 50-year-old's death stunned the tribe, particularly because he was running unopposed for a July re-election. The tribal nation issued a statement online saying that Sullivan had been on medical leave following a condition that deteriorated quickly. Since his passing, Sullivan has been credited with leading his nation on an ambitious course of economic revitalization and caring for the environment. Condolences poured in for Sullivan from his fellow tribal leaders and even from the state's governor, Jay Inslee. The chairman's memorial was held on Sunday at the tribe's gymnasium. Everyone in attendance was encouraged to wear the jersey of any Seattle sports team to celebrate his love for Washington athletics. Staying on the West Coast, we head to the Yakama Nation for its celebration of lamprey and other relatives. ICT's Stuart Huntington reports.
More than 500 people turned out along the banks of the Willamette River to join Indigenous leaders and community members in a celebration and demonstration of treaty rights to fish and harvest lamprey. The lamprey might have graced the title of the event, but they were not the only ones being celebrated.
So we have Pacific lamprey. We have, our Chinook, our steelhead. We also have our residential species such as the sturgeon. We have trout, we have whitefish, bridgelip suckers. We have the mussels, all of the fish that I mentioned, they're all very important to our people, traditionally. And, since the beginning of time, we conduct first food ceremonies that honors and give thanks for the return of the salmon and many other foods.
The event was held near Willamette Falls, where since time immemorial, tribes have harvested lamprey for both ceremony and subsistence. The event included a boat tour and a demonstration of fishing and curing techniques.
So will it be smoked then?
For a century and a half, access to the falls has been cut off by industry. Incremental progress has recently been made to restore access, as corporate interests have at least agreed to study the issue. Tribal leaders, access cannot be restored soon enough, and they want to share that thought and respect for the lamprey with the broader community.
Everybody has to do their share and try to bring the lamprey back. So really glad to see the turnout today for people that are here to support lamprey and hope we can work together to bring them back for the tribes and for everyone that lives in the Columbia River Basin.
In Bay Lake, Minnesota, Stuart Huntington, ICT News.
In Chicago, an Indigenous chef has been selected as the winner of a James Beard Award. Chef Sherry Pocknett is the owner of Sly Fox Den 2 and Rhode Island. She was named the best chef of the Northeast. Pocknett was a semifinalist among 20 other chefs and one of 4 finalists. She didn't expect to win and says she didn't even write a speech. Growing up, Pocknett learned how to harvest wild berries and prides herself on using these teachings in her daily life. She said the real honor is to share her culture through food.
This is what I love. I love educating people about and feeding people the goodness of what's, in your section, in your town, in your state, in the water.
Pocknett, who is battling cancer, accepted the honor right after finishing a round of chemotherapy. We send our congratulations to her. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Nikki Ducheneaux was a lawyer for her nation, the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe, and was a highly respected partner at Big Fire Law and Policy Group. On July 14th, she died unexpectedly. Since then, condolences have poured in for the attorney, with many remembering her as a devoted parent and tireless advocate for Native tribes and communities. Heather Dawn Thompson, the director of the Office of Tribal Relations for the USDA, told ICT that Ducheneaux will be greatly missed, calling her passing a, quote, generational loss. Today, we are re-airing an interview with Nikki Ducheneaux from April with ICT's Shirley Sneve.
Hi, I'm Shirley Sneve, and we're at the RES conference, and I have the honor of interviewing Nikki Ducheneaux. She's an enrolled member of the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe in South Dakota, and she works for Big Fire Law and Policy Center. And she hosted a panel yesterday on voting rights. I wanted to talk to you about that, so welcome.
Thank you, Shirley.
Tell us about the panel and what your goals were for having a panel on voting rights.
So voting rights is a really hot and important issue in Indian country right now, simply because there are deliberate attacks on the right of Native people to participate in state, municipal, and national elections. We do have some reluctance in Indian country to get involved in politics, but it is so critically important to our own sovereignty. Who we elect in a state and national and even a local election has a huge impact on tribes. And, we see it on a broad level. Unfortunately, we elected Donald Trump and the composition of the U.S. Supreme Court changed, and an already anti-Indian court has become incredibly hostile to Indians. And that is a direct result of that national vote. And so what we see out in the localities is that these, local voting officials and local governments are using insidious tactics to make it harder for Native people to vote. And that's a signal that they're scared of our power.
I'm often surprised to hear how many Natives don't vote. And they don't vote because they don't think it has anything to do with them, that their vote isn't going to make a difference. And I think even in Nebraska, with the 4 tribes there, there could be some issues where our voices in Nebraska, I'm Ponca tribe in Nebraska, that it could make a difference. And just to be able to see the world from a different lens, so to speak, of the Native vote.
Yeah, it is disappointing to see that, and we really need a grassroots effort on the ground. I am really lucky to have a relative in my life, my now deceased great aunt Lucille Otter, who was a member of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes, and she was famous for getting out the vote on the Flathead Reservation, and still to this day people will remember her. Oh, Lucille was your aunt. Oh God, she used to come to my house and just badger me about voting, and I used to hate it, but now when I go to vote I always think of her. And we need Aunt Lucille's out there in Indian country, because people of that generation understood what it was like to not have any power, and how lucky we are today to have the right to vote and to have power in our tribal governments. So I really am happy when I see our grassroots efforts getting out the Native vote, because it is so incredibly important.
This conference is bringing together a wide variety of people, mostly that are interested in economic development from a tribal or an independent point of view. And this is a year that we're taking a look at the Farm Bill. Should Natives care about the Farm Bill?
Absolutely. The Farm Bill is so critically important. Agriculture is absolutely the most natural industry for tribes. Although many of us are poor, a lot of our tribes are rich in land. And agricultural industry is part of our cultural history as well. Animal husbandry and cultivating the land, and the opportunities that the U.S. Department of Agriculture offers for funding and grants and programs are so critical to Indian country, and there's a lot of untapped resources. And that my firm Big Fire has started an agriculture practice group that I think is unique in Indian country, where we are working to help tribes like update their tribal codes for grazing and for various things that help make agriculture work in a tribal community. And then also to advocate for tribes to take advantage of grant funding coming out of the Keeps Eagle settlement and programs in the Farm Bill, programs in the USDA. And now is absolutely the time, because the U.S. Department of Agriculture has more advocates for Indian country than we've ever had before. The General Counsel is Janie Hipp, an Indian from Oklahoma. The administrator of the Farm Service Administration is my cousin Zach Ducheneaux. We've got Heather Dawn Thompson running the tribal program in there, and they've all put together excellent teams, and they understand our needs.
And the Dakota Access Pipeline, your firm has been involved in that in the past, and
Yes, that's right. So I was just absolutely honored to represent my own tribe, the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe, in the Dakota Access Pipeline litigation, which unbelievably started 7 years ago in 2016. And although we do have a pipeline under our sacred Minnesota, Missouri River, the tribal plaintiffs in that case won almost every step of the way on the law. And what we were always seeking was a full environmental impact statement. And in 2019 and 2020, that's exactly what the district court ruled. And so we've been in that environmental impact statement process ever since. And tribes have been participating and challenging the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on their cozy relationship with the oil company. And so what tribes are doing now is making the record, because we will sue again. We're Sioux Indians, that's what we do. But that was such a highly visible case in Indian country, because we had such an amazing turnout from the world and from Indian activists, and it's been off the radar. But we are still fighting for our sacred river and our sacred mini, our sacred water, and we're still getting pushback from the federal government. So they better watch out, because we'll come for them again.
Nikki Ducheneaux from Big Fire Law Firm, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Shirley.
For many Alaska Natives and Native Americans, living on tribal lands and reservations provides a sense of pride, independence, and the ability to maintain culture and traditions. Life within tribal communities can also mean high rates of poverty, lack of access to food, transportation, communication, and healthcare. Complex medical procedures like an organ transplant can seem unattainable, but the Mayo Clinic in Arizona is working to change that. A new patient outreach program is helping to connect Native Americans and Alaska Natives with the life-saving transplants that they need. In collaboration with the Mayo Clinic, ICT's McKenzie Charmley takes us to the Navajo Nation, where one man says the program helped save his life.
Miles off the paved roads, in the northern Arizona desert near the banks of the Colorado River, sits the small Native American community of Loop, the very first chapter in the Navajo Nation. Navajo citizen Robert Monroe, his wife Jackie, and their children are one of a handful of families born and raised on this land. Like many others who call this community home, they live with little means, far below the poverty line.
Money is tight. It is and limited income, and now we have the 2 grandkids that we have to provide for.
Then, 5 years ago, the family got some devastating news. Robert was diagnosed with a kidney disease that would require dialysis 3 times a week, with the closest center about an hour away.
It wasn't easy. A lot of times we hitchhiked. We hitchhiked to dialysis.
After almost 5 years, dialysis was not enough. Doctors told Robert he needed a kidney transplant to survive. That's when Navajo citizen Selena Thomas stepped in. Selena also grew up on the Navajo Nation, facing similar struggles. She now works as a patient navigator in the transplant center at Mayo Clinic in Arizona. She helps remove cultural and language barriers so Native Americans can get the life-saving transplants they need.
You come here and you're surrounded by, all you see are white faces. And, that's scary and that's intimidating. And plus you don't understand what they're saying and, they're trying to ask you questions. And that can be very intimidating.
Thomas helped Robert and Jackie secure transportation, lodging, insurance, and other details for the transplant. But it was the cultural connection with Selena the family valued the most.
She was like part of us at Mayo Clinic because she knew Navajo, and we would speak and laugh with her in Navajo, and we felt comfortable with it because we felt like she was like a sister.
I know that my mom would be very proud to help other patients, to be able to, be that bridge.
Robert's kidney transplant was a success. Fully recovered, he's back home on the land he loves, enjoying time with his family, and looking forward to a brighter future with gratitude for the donor who gave him the gift of life.
The person that donated has a bigger heart than I do. And I say, thank you for making me special again.
On the Navajo Nation, McKenzie Charmley, ICT News.
Being a woman in technology has been something else. I've been through a lot of obstacles and a lot of people saying that Native women can't do this, can't do that, but I proved them wrong. I love that I can show these little girls that they can also be information technologists, computer scientists, anything that they put their mind to. If they have a strong interest in computers, as I did as a young girl, I'm pretty sure they can do what I can do. As technology advances, I want to grow with it. I want to help my community. Education is power. It's the power for you to do whatever you want with your life, your future. It takes you places, and believe me, you're going places.
The social justice organization IllumiNative is celebrating its 5th anniversary. Crystal Echohawk says she first started the organization to activate the findings of the Reclaiming Native Truth Project. It is the largest public opinion research and strategy setting project ever conducted by, for, and about Native peoples. The findings started a movement to raise the profile of Indigenous people, given that around 78% of Americans know little to nothing about Native people. Sandra Schulman has this interview.
One of the biggest things, and as we've looked back at 5 years in terms of our impact, right? We have on average, we reach more than 3 million people a month. I think last year we reached more than 61 million people via just our social media, and digital outreach and campaigns to almost over 1 billion versus, earned media. And we look at that, and those are really wonderful, incredible numbers. And I think we're really working hard to, when we think about narrative change and how are we really working to shift the minds, of non-natives in this country about Native peoples on key issues. And I think how are we also really building, a broader consensus in Indian country also on key issues as well. But I think that even though those are amazing numbers, I think we also have to look at that's just the tip of the iceberg. If we are really going to have a really transformative, narrative change and big shift in how people are viewing Native peoples, where we are really seeing that we're, not seeing tribal sovereignty under threat, right? We just dodged a bullet in the Supreme Court recently, but you could see from the justices in some of the comments, right, by some of the justices, they do not understand federal Indian law. You still see how stereotypes and misinformation and false narratives really shape the way that very influential and powerful institutions and people think about it. When we think about politics and politicians and all, it feels polarized. It feels like, is anything really getting done? But when we really look at when we can intersect, politics and social justice and culture, right? And media, it's a really powerful combination. And so we've just loved, again, the response to these Indigenous House events, and we'd love to see those grow in 2024, where we might be able to bring them to more cities.
They've become a real powerhouse meeting place, I've found, because people from all different areas, get together there and start exchanging ideas, and you're presenting panels and all kinds of really interesting things going on there.
I appreciate it. I mean, I think that's one of the things that we love doing at IllumiNative. And I think we do it well, and I'm proud of our team, but just to create those spaces, those convening spaces, because we have so many brilliant, amazing people doing so many good things, and with a lot of incredible knowledge and projects and important things to say. And when we can kind of bring together people in interesting ways and create those spaces, I mean, that's really how the initial research that we did came together. I mean, we did research, and then really out of that grew IllumiNative by putting lots of smart people from Indian country in the room and thinking about how do we need to organize, how do we need to show up, where are the levers of change that we have to push to. So it's a really exciting time, and I'm so proud of not only our staff, but I just love that all of the big things that we've been a part of, from the Washington football name change to our Natives Vote campaigns to the work that we've done in Hollywood. We do all this work in partnership with incredible folks and organizations across Indian country, but also with allies, and we really believe in that kind of approach of relational organizing. And it's just not all about us, and it's really like when we can work collectively, the impact is so much greater. And so it's hard to believe it's been 5 years. There's so many exciting things happening, but I think also we as a country, and I think as Indian country, we're facing real challenges. And it's going to be so important that we get organized and we not take anything for granted. We've made so much progress. I think when I look at, in Hollywood, for example, right? And you look at the shows, and so much of that has come, since 2020. But now as we see from the Supreme Court decision last week, right, there's not that decision on affirmative action just wasn't only about what's going on in colleges and universities. Instantaneously, there were articles being written up about the doors kind of shutting in entertainment and media, DEI, initiatives being cut. We've heard more and more executives saying that diversity doesn't pay. Increasingly, we talk about the culture wars in this country, right? And we began to understand that it's not about news and facts sometimes, right? I mean, it's really looking at innovative ways through social media, popular culture, TV, comedy. Those are a lot of ways people are being informed on issues. And sometimes, as we know, not very responsibly. So I think it's really, the call to action for Indian country is that we need to make more investments in this storytelling media space. That's why Indian country today is so important, right? And we need to be investing more in that, but thinking about all the different forms of storytelling to really amplify our voices, our issues, and our perspectives, so that the American public really sees who we are, and that we can more effectively advocate for the things that are most important to our communities. And I think that's just going to become increasingly important, and we're very much focused on how we do that and how we challenge ourselves and innovate, again, especially as we're coming into 2024 and looking at the election. Next year is the 100th anniversary of citizenship for Native peoples. There are a lot of things going on, and we need to come together and really get after it and ensure that we're protecting our rights, we're protecting tribal sovereignty, but also doing everything we can to ensure that our communities are thriving.
That was Crystal Echohawk. And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.